What is up, guys? TopTierYugioh here, and today I have a super special and very incredible deck profile for you guys. Today we are going to be looking at Zoodiacs, a deck that I've really been enjoying in this new April 2020 ban list. I think it can be a really strong sleeper deck. And in this video, I really want to show you exactly what this deck can do. And so I'm going to have a really in-depth profile where I go over all the choices. And after that, I'm going to show you guys a couple of combos to again just show you what this deck can do, because it can do some pretty cool plays. And so let's go ahead and get into the profile. But before getting into the profile, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because it really means a lot and it helps this channel out a ton. This channel is still relatively small, but every little thing that you guys can do to help really does help exponentially, so I really do appreciate it. But let's go ahead and actually get into the deck profile. So we're going to be starting off with the Zoodiac monsters. We're going to be playing one rat, of course, and then 3 Thoroughblades, 3 Whiptails, and then 3 Rams. And so we're essentially maxing out on all of the good Zoodiac monsters. I mean, the other ones like Cataroost and Bunny, whatever it is, Bunny Senpai, that one's also pretty good, or they're okay, but they're just not good enough. And so that's going to be it for the Zoodiac monsters. After that, we have 2 Time Thief Winders. Winders are a really good extender for this deck because it detaches a material from your Xyz monsters, and so that allows you to set up for Chakanine plays very, very easily, and it's a key part in a lot of your combos. The only reason I don't play 3 of them is because it's not very good in multiples, and you don't necessarily want to see it at every stage of the game either. You really only want to see it when you're kind of starting your plays. But if you already draw it to an established board and you don't have a Zoodiac monster, or you don't have a way to get started, then it's pretty much dead. And so you really only want to have it some of the time and not all of the time. And you play so many Zoodiac monsters that it's usually fine. So I found 2 to be the optimal number here. But I can definitely see playing 3. Moving on to the hand traps, we have 2 Nibiru's, 2 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbits, 2 DD Crows, 2 Ash Blossoms, and 2 Infinite Impermanences. So 2 of each of these 5 different hand traps. The reason I decided to play these ratios is because really in Zoodiacs you want to have a hand of like 5 different cards. Those are your best hands, where you have 5 completely different cards. That way you can utilize all of their effects, because none of these are good in multiples. So none of them really should be 3-ofs. None of them are like guaranteed going to be good in any matchup except maybe Ash. Ash is maybe the only card that I would consider at 3, and maybe Nibiru just because of the power level. But I find that really, again, in Zoodiacs you want to open hands of 5 different cards, and those are really going to be your winning hands. And so I find that 2 elves are really good in this deck. Another interesting thing about Impermanence is it is a card that can be drawn against an established board, and then you can negate things like Winda, or you know, whatever Floodgate monsters are on board, or you could set it in the same back row as a Floodgate, negate that Floodgate for a turn. So Impermanence can also serve multiple roles. Moving on to the spell cards, we're going to start with 3 Tinkies and 1 Barrage. After that, we have 3 copies of Zoodiac Combo. And Combo is a card that I see players all over the place on. I see some people not playing it at all, some playing 1, some only 2, in which I was also playing 2 for quite a while, but recently I decided that 3 is probably the way to go, because I just wanted to see it in all of my hands. I mean, it combos very well with Rap here, and that's going to be a combo that I'm going to show you guys a little bit later, but it combos very well. It also can help you recycle things back into your extra deck and in your main deck to boost your efficiency. And really it's kind of like a measure of how well you're able to play in the game. So for example, if you're able to actually resolve combo, it means you're able to play. If you're unable to resolve combo, then you are unable to play, and that also means you're going to probably lose that game. But resolving combo multiple times I find to be kind of the biggest predicament or indicator of success. So I think combo is very, very important to play. Maybe you choose not to play it at 3, but I think at least at 2. Because with only 1 Drident now, you really have to shuffle your things back into the deck, or else the deck just doesn't do anything. And so you need to shuffle Drident back. Next we have 2 Pot of Desires for consistency. And then 3 Pot of Avarice, which is a huge boost off of the ban list, because this again helps you get your Dridents back into your deck so you can use them again. This, along with Pot of Desire, is going to draw you into more cards, which we've already seen. We play a lot of Disruption, and so you add those to your Drident. They're really going to be good for stopping your opponent and allowing you to set up for your next turn. So Avarice, I think, is huge in this deck. Like, if you think about the 5 characteristics of the best decks, you think of power, consistency, efficiency, utility, and diversity. Those are the 5 characteristics that all great decks have. Well, the one thing that Zoodiacs really don't have and can't be made up for is power. Like, there's just no way. Like, you're not UGKing people in Zoo. It never has been a thing. Well, yeah, it has, but it's not going to be a thing anytime soon. Not with only 2 rats. But But if you think about the other ones like consistency, efficiency, diversity, and utility, those are where we really have to focus our deck building efforts on. So you have to boost your consistency as much as you can. That's where desires, avarice, combo all come in. Efficiency, again, avarice and combo help you recycle your resources back so that you can continue to use them. The engine itself has relatively good utility between Drident, between Whiptail, and the different Zoodiac monsters and effects that you can resolve. You know, it's kind of okay, but your extract's going to be your main source of utility, just like most other decks. But then when it comes to diversity, you also, again, you can win via tempo, you can win via card advantage. You have some relatively good diversity, but again, the lack of power does hurt because you're not able to play the beatdown very effectively at times. But, you know, it's okay. So again, you really just have to focus on those, and I think Avarice is a great card for that, and again, for your efficiency and for your consistency. That's a lot of theory jargon, so let's go ahead and move on to the next cards. We have 2 Called by the Graves, 2 Cosmic Cyclones, 2 Solemn Strikes, 2 Compulsory Evacuation Devices, and 2, well, we already saw the Infinite Permanences, but these are essentially my defensive cards, my trap cards, more or less, quote-unquote trap cards. Again, everything in 2 of, because we just want to see one of everything. We don't want to see multiples of any of these cards, and we don't need any of them to really play. And now if there was anything here that I would bump up to 3, it would maybe be Compulse, just because it's so good going first or going second, even against established boards. Compulse is usually going to be able to clear a monster in most matchups, whether it be Shaddoll, Salamangreat, maybe not Dinos. You probably die against Dinos. I mean, if you go second against Dinos, you maybe have a chance actually, but in most matchups, Compulse is just extremely powerful. It's also not once per turn, so that's maybe the one thing I would boost to 3 on this list. But I'm pretty happy with everything else. I've seen a lot of lists playing Solemn Judgment, as do a lot of other similar decks such as Guru and Altergeist. But one problem that I have with Judgment, and I even have the same issue with Cosmic Cyclone and Strike as well, is that paying life points in this deck I find is really detrimental, more so than those other decks, because it's so hard to put damage on board sometimes. I mean, again, the power of this deck is very, very low, and it isn't like Altergeist where you can summon out multiple monsters with multi-faker, you have Manifestation. Isn't like Guru where you at least have big monsters in your main deck. Here it's really, really difficult actually. And so I really don't like paying life points, especially not half. Like 1,000 here or there, 1,500 here or there, that's fine. But half of your life points, that's a very huge hurdle to have to get back over. And that's just going to lead to very, very long games because, again, we have trouble ending them. And so that's going to force you to usually go into time. And like you just don't want that just to negate one card. I just found it better to play more versatile cards. And then to also, again, not play as many of them. So we have so many different cards in this deck. And so that's it for the main deck. Let's go ahead and move on to the extra deck. Starting with the Zoodiac monsters, we have 3 copies of Chakanine. One of the best cards in the deck. I mean, it gets a free monster on board for you to link with. Well, you can't Xyz with it, but to link with. There are lots of cool plays you can do with it, like bringing back a Drident, then Tiger Mortaring material under it, so that on your opponent's next turn, the Drident's live again. Or bringing back like a Ram, then destroying the Ram. There are a lot of really cool plays that you can do with Chakanine. It's definitely a 3 of. Then we have 2 Tiger Mortars, which is questionably a 3 of as well, but I kind of wanted space for other things, and I felt that 2 was okay. 2 copies of Boarbow, which again, this is a questionable 2 of. This is something that I could definitely be playing 1 of, but I find the second one actually comes up very often, especially when you just need an extra Zoodiac monster to burn for the materials. Boarbow is a fine one to go into, but also the effect to attack directly it comes up a lot. And so you can definitely get some chip damage in that way. And then finally we have Hammer Kong and Drident, 1 copy of each of those. And so when Drident got banned, this hole represents the hole in my heart when I was unable to play this deck anymore. I was extremely sad because, again, this is one of my favorite decks of all time. And so that hole represents my heart. But now that we have Drident back, it's been filled. I got extra copies of Drident that I actually use in events. Well, there haven't been events, but what I will use in events, because I don't think this is tournament legal, but yeah, regardless. Let's move on to the rest of the extra deck. We have 1 Tornado Dragon and 1 Abyss Dweller, 2 really common and good rank 4s. I think Abyss Dweller is actually really underrated right now. Not many decks are playing it. I guess not many decks in this format can summon it, but it's really good against Salamangreat, against Shaddolls, against Idlich, against Dinos, against everything, almost everything. Dweller is a really good option. And then Tornado Dragon is as well. in a lot of matchups, especially those slower ones. Being able to destroy 2 cards is pivotal. And then moving on to the Link monsters, we have 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Infinitrack Fortress Megaclops, and then finally 1 Borrelsword. All of these are 1-ofs in this deck because, again, we have 3 copies of Pot of Avarice, and so we can relatively safely assume that we're going to be able to shuffle them back into the deck. Now, the one that I definitely see more people playing extra copies of is the Megaclops, because it's so easy to go into. All you need is 1 rat or rat Thoroughblade or a Tinky. There's lots of ways you can get into it, and it's very hard for a good number of decks to get over. So it can be a win condition on its own. However, I find that 1 copy is generally enough, because if you're in a matchup to where your opponent can't out it for, let's say, Shaddolls, summoning that first one's going to be enough because they can't out it. If you're in a matchup where it's not very good, then you summon the first one, they're going to out it. Why would you summon a second one if they can out it? So why would you waste 3 monsters to go into this if they can just out it again? So what are the odds that you're able to make it, they break your board, and then you don't have Pot of Avarice to get it back, and then you're also still able to make it again, and they don't have any disruption to stop you, and then you think that they can't break it again? Like, you know, it just doesn't make sense. Those situations were just never coming up for me, so I decided to cut it for to have more space for more cards, such as the other rank 4s. Well, not the Zoodiac rank 4s, but like Dweller, Tornado Dragon, that are high impact at times. And then the final card in the extra deck is Borrelsword, which is maybe a little bit questionable because this deck isn't very good at putting 4 monsters on board. It generally doesn't happen, but I do find that it can kind of fix the problem of not being able to play the beatdown at times, or the problem of being able to end games. And it comes up when you can stick a board. So if you can make, you know, a Drident, right? And then your opponent can't out the Drident because you also had Compulse and a Ghost Over, some other hand traps that you couldn't break your board. So then on your following turn, you're able to like Chakanine something back, Drident pop Drident pop like a Ram, activate Chakanine a couple more times, and then somehow you get the 4 monsters. Like it somehow happens on turn 2. Like, you're never gonna OTK with it or anything, but if they can't break your board and you have another normal summon, you can always kind of go into it. So it definitely comes up. It's one of those few ways that you can put some damage on the board. And so I definitely do like Borrelsword, but I also could see reasons why people don't play it. But that is it for the extra deck. Let's go ahead and move into the side deck. Really like the side deck a lot here. So we're going to start with 3 copies of Mystic Mine and 1 Metaverse. I know a lot of people hate Mystic Mine, but I think it's great in this deck because we can very easily play with just 1 monster, and we can also win the game with just 1 monster. So we can summon 1 Zoodiac monster and then summon a Boarbow and attack directly continuously until our opponent loses. And now it's kinda, you know, never feels good to win like that, you know, but it's a win condition, and so I think it's appropriate to play in this deck, and it works better than in most other decks. Now, another cool thing is that you can boost the Boarbow's attack, so if you make it with like a Thoroughblade, puts it at 1600, that puts your opponent on a 5-turn clock. They got 5 turns to draw the out. If they don't, they lose. And I really like that a lot. And the more monsters you have, like Whiptail and Zoodiac combo, the better it gets. And, you know, it's even possible to resolve that other Boarbow effect as well. And so sometimes you end up with like 12 materials and you attack direct for 4,000 and destroy their whole hand and field. Now that would shut off Mystic Mine, but you probably win at that point anyways, so it's okay. Next we have 3 copies of Artifact Sanctum and 1 copy of Scythe. Really enjoy this right now in this format because it's one of the very few cards that will skip your opponent's turn if it's the right matchup, but that's why it's the side deck. It's always going to be the right matchup when you draw it, and so I really like it a lot. And then even if you draw Scythe, you can potentially make Tornado Dragon and still destroy the Scythe on your opponent's turn and get that effect. So I definitely like it a lot. The only sort of conflict or contradiction is its lack of synergy or anti-synergy with Pot of Desires. Sometimes you will banish Scythe with your Pot of Desires, but as long as you don't draw into Sanctum, it's kind of okay. But again, this deck has so much draw power between the Thoroughblades, the combos, the Desires, the Avarices, that if you banish your Scythe, there's a pretty high chance at some point you will draw into Sanctum, which can sometimes be unfortunate, but even in those cases, if it's a game 2, people are going to be siding in back row hate for you, and sometimes you get lucky and they might Twin Twister your Sanctum or Lightning Storm it, and so you can kind of play the mental game like that to get that to happen. Next we have 3 copies of Evenly Matched for going second, but the only issue is sometimes it's kind of conflicting if you have a Tinky, but for the most part I really like Evenly. Then we have the third in the Nibiru because it's just so powerful. Third Cosmic Cyclone, I think all of these should go in most side decks right now. I mean, they're all just very versatile and very powerful cards at the moment. And then the final 2 cards in the side deck are 2 copies of Heavy Stormduster. I think this is a great card against more back row heavy decks, and I like it a lot more than Twin Twister because this is going to be a +1. So it's a little slower because it's a trap, but if you're playing against a trap deck, odds are you don't need, the immediate destruction now. You're usually going to win those games based on resource management, and so you really need the +1. I think it's just more impactful that way. So I really have been liking the double Heavy Stormdusters. But that is it for the deck. Let's go ahead and move into some of the combos. And so for this first one, we're just going to be using a Zoodiac Rat here, but you can also use either a Tinky to search Rat, or you can have Thoroughblade plus Ram. Really all you need is a Zoodiac monster on board, and then you need a Ram in the graveyard. So however you get that done, it's going to work. And so the way this combo goes is you're going to start by normal summoning Rat here, activating the effect to dump Ram, then summoning Chakanine effect to detach Rat, and then bring back the Ram. Next, you can make Drident on the Chakanine, activate Drident's effect targeting Ram. Ram will trigger to bring back the Chakanine. Next, you overlay Tiger Mortar on the Drident, and then you Tiger Mortar material back under the Chakanine, and then activate Chakanine's effect to revive the Drident. That gives you 3 Xyz monsters, so you can link all of them into a Mega Clops. So again, if you're playing against a deck like Shadal's, that's like an auto win because there's no way they're getting over it. Like, I don't think any card in their deck can get over the 4,000 attack, and then I don't think they have any spells or traps to out it either in most cases, so you win. Another thing that I really like about this combo is that it also puts exactly 5 Zoodiac monsters in your graveyard that are all different names as well. So if you draw into a Pot of Avarice or a combo, that's going to be live. So you're going to be set up to recycle your plays back, get some extra draws, maybe draw into a follow-up play. It puts you in a really good position because, again, you have this monster that they can't get rid of, and then you're going to likely follow up with something else as well. So things can get really out of control like that. Like when you next turn use Mega Clops effect, then bring back a Chakanine. Chakanine brings something else back, and then, things can get crazy whether you have the recycle cards or not. But another play that I really enjoy if you do have a card like Zoodiac Combo, it's a little bit different. You're not going to be ending on Mega Clops, and I think it's a little bit better against matchups where Mega Clops isn't as useful, like against Salamangreats. You might not want to just pass on a Mega Clops because then you just get destroyed by a Rage, and you have no other interruption either, so that's not always the best. But if you have a Zoodiac Combo and you go back to the point where we had the 3 Xyz monsters, what you can actually do is link 2 of them that are not Drident into an IP Mask Arena, and then you can pass on IP Mask Arena and Drident. On your opponent's turn, you can activate the combo and then attach the material to Drident. So that's going to give you 2 separate disruptions between the Drident pop and then IP Mask Arena's effect, which could allow you to go into Unicorn on your opponent's turn and shuffle back one of their cards. And then again, you also still have your Zoodiac monsters in the graveyard plus combo, so you're going to be able to recycle them and draw again, which is going to set you up for your next turn. So I really like that play a lot. Something else that you could do that I can't because I don't play it, but you could also summon a Mrs. Radiant instead of the IP Mask Arena, and that will guarantee you a follow-up play if they clear your board with the Mrs. Radiant. And that's another play that I also kind of like, but I couldn't quite justify playing Mrs. Radiant just for that. Whereas a card like IP Mask Arena is going to be good in various hands, and we're going to see a couple more hands where it's good, just like now. So in this next combo, we're going to be using any random Zoodiac monster. It can be a Whiptail, Thoroughblade without the discard, Ram, and then Time Thief Winder. And so for this, you're just going to start by normal summoning whatever Zoodiac monster you have, linking into either Boarbow or Hammer Kong to something random that you don't need to save for later in particular. You can activate Winder's effect by detaching the Whiptail, or whatever zoo monster it was. Then you make Chakanine, revive that monster. Next, you can link both of those into an IP Mask Arena. Well, first, it doesn't matter if you link in an IP Mask Arena or summon your other Zoodiac monsters first, either way, but one thing that you can't do here is to link them into like a Tornado Dragon or a Dweller, because anything you bring back with Chakanine can't be used for an Xyz summon. So that's something you definitely want to keep in mind. But yeah, same as that last board, we're going to have IP Mask Arena plus Drident, which is going to give us multiple disruptions plus whatever else is in our hand, and it's usually going to set us up for a pretty good play. And then once again, we have 5 Zoodiac monsters of different names plus the Winder, and so if you happen to have drawn into Combo or into Pot of Avarice, we're going to be set up for that as well. And now finally for the last combo, we're going to be doing one with Rat and then Winder. And once again, Rat can also be Tinky to search Rat, or it can be Thoroughblade plus Ram, pretty much just, again, a Zoodiac on board and a way to get Ram in the graveyard. So we are going to start by normal summoning the rat, dumping the ram, very similar to before. It's going to be the same as that play up until a point. So we're going to summon a Boarbow on top of that. Could be a Hammer Kong, doesn't matter. And then we're going to use Time Thief Winder's effect to detach that material. And next we're going to summon Chakanine on top of it, and then use Chakanine's effect to bring back the Ram. Now we're going to Xyz over that Chakanine, either the Boarbow or Hammer Kong, whichever you didn't use, then Drident on top of that. The reason we do this is so that our Drident still has enough materials for our opponent's next turn. We don't want to, just summon our Drident too quickly and have to use the only material now, and then have nothing for our opponent's turn. That kind of defeats the purpose of this. But now now that the Drident has 2 materials, we can attach one of them to destroy the Ram. Ram can bring back the rat, and now we can Xyz with both the rat and the Winder in order to make a proper rank 4, like Abyss Dweller or Tornado Dragon. Something else that we could also do, if we really wanted to, is we could also bring back a Chakanine, or we could summon Chakanine, and then use Chakanine to bring back another of our Link monsters, Tiger Mortar material under it, and then use that effect again. Or we could bring back a Hammer Kong and then put material under Hammer Kong so our opponent won't be able to target our monsters. So there's some other really cool plays you can do, but making the rank 4 like Dweller or Tornado Dragon is generally going to be better. At least until we get Broadbow. If we get Broadbow back, then you could do some pretty cool plays like this. But we'll save that for another day. Then there's also this other combo. It's probably like the best one you can do. But it's if you have pretty much all of these combo cards. So if you have Rat, Barrage, Time Thief Winder, and Zoodiac combo, then you can end on Drident, rank 4, and IP Masquerena with combo as well. So you that's a pretty nut board, but it's like a pretty ridiculous 4-card combo with a one of like Barrage, and so not gonna waste your guys' time showing that one off, but just know you can do that play as well. Another option is, because we have 3 monsters set up in the grave already, we could also go into a Daigusto Emerald, shuffle them back, and get a free draw. I just don't play Emerald because of space, but that's another option. But yeah, that's about it. But alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile with a couple of combos. Hope you guys get something from it, because again, Zoodiacs can definitely be one of the better sleeper decks of this format. And now if you're interested in more content, there's going to be videos on the left side of the screen right about here where I'm pointing, as well as in the YouTube cards up in the top right corner. So definitely go ahead and check them out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.